Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, brought to you by Join Cycling, the number one adaptive training platform for your cycling goals. This is the preview of Team Visma Lease bike for 2025. We're going to review their 2024 season. A lot of changes, their results, the disappointments, some of the surprises, the transfers, outgoing and incoming, and then what we think their schedule should be for the 2025 season, as well as hot takes, predictions, and more. How you going, Benji? How's your Christmas?
Pretty good. I enjoyed it, definitely.
What'd you get?
I'm also just starting to look forward to the new season again. We're like closing into the last week. We're in the last week of December as we are recording this. So January is closing in. Santa Southern Under is closing in, the first World Tour race of the season, and I'm both terrified and enthusiastic about it.
You're going to love that race. So it's like your dream, that race.
X-doubt.
There's a festival like area where everyone congregates in the middle of the city every day with like all the teams, all the bikes, all the riders chilled.
Should be fun.
You will like it. Yeah.
But to be clear, no spiders or snakes allowed in the festival, right?
Yeah, probably won't be. Yeah, no snakes. No snakes. Benji, I'm looking at a spider right now. His name is Bruce, and he lives in the corner, and I keep him there, and he kills mosquitoes.
Oh, I don't like it.
So Visma Lease bike. Before we begin, obviously I'm the head of strategy at Team Visma Lease bike. I'm on the sportive management team that started about midway through this year, and that coincided with the departure of Merijn Zeeman, who was the sportive manager of the team. I would say that undersells his role a little bit. He was, really, like, obviously Richard Plugger is the owner and CEO of the team. Merijn Zeeman was, managing almost all the sportive aspects. He was had an overview of all of those, including, for example, originally hiring Benji and myself. So he, obviously a big loss for the team. He's gone to AZ Alkmaar, which is, I believe, Luke will correct me if I'm wrong, a football team in the north of Amsterdam. They say it's a different place, but I looked on a map and it's pretty close to Australian standards. I guess that's Europe. That's a big loss to the team, Benji. So how do you view that change?
Honestly, it's hard to really grasp how much Merijn Zeeman was part of Visma Lease bike's DNA over the last decade, I would say. Because I look at the last couple of years and he's really the man that, from my perspective, put stuff in place. As in, okay, you've got every single area. So you got the nutrition area, you got the strategy area, you've got the actual performance area, the aero area, whatever. All the areas within the team. I feel like he was the guy that was like above all those areas, had to know enough about those areas to make decisions with those areas and to put the right people in those areas to make sure those areas could perform at the best they could possibly do. And now that has changed. And externally, the rumors and news we heard across the year was that it would be replaced by 5 management individuals. Is that a right description? And are those 5 people on the same line, or how do I see that?
Yeah, so it's impossible to replace Merijn because, as you said, he was doing so much. So it's 5 different people doing different things that were like components of his job. So Matthew Heibor, he's head of performance. Then Grisha becomes head of racing, stepping above his role, which was the lead DS. He's now head of overall DS. Racing. Yeah, but also with the recruitment. So now Grisha takes final decisions on the recruitment, which Merijn did alongside Richard Plugger. Jaco comes in for the coaching. I do strategy, and Robert De Croo development, and Richard Plugger is obviously still the CEO. But Merijn's one of those people, you can't really replace. You meet a few people like this in life who have that like drive in them, like that real drive, mongrel dog and competency. There's not so many people like this, and Merijn was one of them. I had one of them at Allens, John Gregg, and Merijn was another one of them. So you can't replace him. So that's Benji. If there's one thing about And yeah, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity he gave me. But if there's one thing about sports continuity that I know is it's tough to replace good people like that. If the Spurs lost Greg Popovich, if the Patriots lost Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, I'm trying to give you a European example so you'll understand.
I've given up on the examples that you're donating to me, but I'm more looking at it from the perspective of, okay, there was one person in charge on paper. It's not really, it's kind of half in charge, I would argue. He's like the manager above all in that sense, under Richard Plugge. That is now replaced by multiple people. The one question mark I have, which I think is a logical question mark towards the next season, is, are all those branches, those multiple people that are now on the same line in hierarchy, are those people going to be able to communicate at the same level as one individual? Probably not,
Exactly.
because they're basically replacing one individual, so it's going to be hard to communicate and work together as one individual, because you're literally multiple people. So that could end up leading to problems in the next season, but that's obviously speculation, pure speculation, and that depends on the personalities of those people, the ambitions of those people, the areas that those people specialize in, whether they're okay with delegating to people that might be more specialized in that are on the same line. There's so much into that. That's impossible to predict, but I do think a major stamp has to be set on Merijn Zeeman departing, and that potentially having some kind of influence onto the next season. But maybe you can answer this. If we take a look at the 2024 season, how much, has this already transformed throughout the season, or is this something that starts on January 1st?
No, it's already happening. It's already been happening. It's like this was not like Merijn said, oh yeah, I'm leaving in a week.
Yesterday.
And then, no. Already been happening. So I'm confident it's gonna continue. It's a big challenge. It's very exciting. I'm excited by the challenge, and maintaining, as we saw in 2024, which we'll get to the results now, Benji, maintaining that high level is very difficult. For any team to stay on top, and indeed, UAE Team Emirates came over the top in 2024 after Visma's huge 2023 season. So 2024, 32 victories, 18 World Tour victories, 5 Grand Tour victories. The year before was 69 overall victories, including 38, so over double at World Tour level, and 7 Grand Tour victories, including obviously all 3 Grand Tours. So it's halved basically across the board.
Yeah. It's halved, and it's difficult to look at it, because if you look at the 69 victories in 2023, then like you say, there's those big ones in there. We're talking about 3 Grand Tour victories within a single year. How easily is that replaceable? Very difficult. I wasn't too bullish on a team being able to repeat that the second year in a row, personally. So it's not utterly surprising that happens, but they don't just end up with 2 or 1. It's like they didn't end up getting those in 2024, those Grand Tour victories, because, well, at the end of 2024, we had the departure of Roglic, which at the end of the day, that takes away a rider that can compete for a Grand Tour, as proven at the Vuelta for Bora, which then leads to the team of Visma Lease Bike to have to partially bet on the likes of Kian Uitenbroek, who is younger, in a Grand Tour like at the Giro, but also has to put Wout van Aert into a position, which Wout van Aert probably enjoyed, where he then goes for a green jersey or stage wins, etc. So that's a different focus than going for GC in those races. But there's so many factors that went to the season by Visma Lease Bike. And I think a big part also was bad luck from my perspective, because if we just look at the classics for a second, starting off great, Jan Tratnik winning Omloop at Nieuwsblad, pretty sure Wout van Aert won the day after at Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne. I know it's not a World Tour race, but in my heart it is. Okay, it deserves it more than Dwars of Vlaanderen in my personal opinion. But then we look at what happens afterwards. I swear Matteo Jorgensen is the only guy that didn't have a serious injury in the classics, which that's quite sad. Ties Benoot crashed in E3, Jan Tratnik crashed in Gent-Wevelgem, and eventually abandoned Dwars door Vlaanderen. I'm not sure if that was related towards Gent-Wevelgem. Dylan van Baarle crashed in E3, eventually also got sick, so his classics were done as well, basically. Christophe Laporte got ill throughout the classics as well before RVV. We had Wout van Aert crashing in Dwars door Vlaanderen very seriously and having injuries that not only led to him not being able to ride RVV Roubaix, but also impacting his Giro participation. Bertrand Hagenes had a broken nose, a facial injury,
nose.
I think.
Broken nose, yeah.
Maybe in Kuren or something on early on in the season that would also lead to him being impacted. I literally just named you like 7 riders. That is 7 riders that would on paper be in a classic squad. Obviously, you've got Mick and Tim van Dijk that also existed in the world and a few other riders, but those are riders that not easy to replace half of those riders in a classics team, especially if, in my personal opinion, Wout van Aert is not on the level of Mathieu van der Poel, so you need that numerical advantage, that strength across the board to be able to intimidate teams like Alpecin and so forth and put in strategic choices by having multiple riders up the road, like in Omloop, for example. And then you still have someone left. Like, they went up the road in Omloop with multiple riders, and at the end of the day, they got caught, and another guy attacked and won. Like, that's numerical strength, and that is taken away by the amount of injuries and crashes and illnesses that they had during the classics. And I gotta be honest, the rest of the classics were rather sad for the team, and in my opinion, a lot of what was due to bad luck and crashes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the results in Flanders and Roubaix, or the lack thereof in those 2 races. If you don't have Van Aert and you don't have, well, Jorgensen wasn't in Paris-Roubaix, it's tough to get a result, especially as, Laporte wasn't consistent throughout spring. So it was not the end of spring that they wanted, because you're right, Benji, like March started and it looked like the show was going to continue from 23 with opening weekend and then Paris-Nice Tirreno. The double, which hadn't been done before, and then it kind of the crashes really hurt spring. Then it got worse with Vingegaard in obviously in Pays Vasco. That could have been even worse, to be honest. At that moment, it looked like when all those riders went down into the ditch, people could be losing their careers. Worse, it was a horrendous crash, and then there was no wins for quite a while in that middle period, or like a lack of wins. And then Dauphiné, I would say Jorgensen looked good again.
Yeah.
And then the Tour de France, Vingegaard was second with a stage.
I think it needs to be highlighted how much Matteo Jorgensen was a cornerstone for this team when everything else fell apart. If we go back to the classics, he's the one that ends up winning Dwars door Vlaanderen, win the attack with Tignes, etc. in a group after the crash of Wout van Aert happened. And he's that guy that wins that. But also, in the classics where he does not get the results, he's the Visma Lease bike factory that does play a major role, because in RVV, he's the guy that tries to follow Pogacar on the Koppenberg, if I recall correctly, in 2nd position over the top. And yes, he burns himself doing that, but he was the center of attention next to Pogacar on that climb. And that bears the question. Like, we've gone through this multiple times already, and I think we've hammered this point home already. Visma Lease bike is a team of winners. They go to these races to win. RVV, they go to that race to win, which then leads to the fact that Jorgensen overextends to follow the likes of Pogacar to potentially get that victory. But in doing so, burning himself and finishing like 26th, 27th, something like that, if my memory serves me right. Like, he would have had a much better result, definitely a top 10, if he doesn't burn himself there. But it wouldn't be Visma Lease bike if they didn't try that, in my head either, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's not trying to... I mean, Jorgensen in Flanders, if he wants to maximize his chance for a podium result, he just sits quietly in the wheels all day, not opening the race at 100 k's to go. But
is that
trying to win? No, I think trying to follow Van der Poel on Koppenberg, not a mistake. What if you follow him? Like, what if you do get in the wheel, and then you might be guaranteed second at worst. Opening on the Wolvenberg, that was in hindsight probably a mistake, because it shouldn't have been him. It should have been, because he was the best rider on the team. It should have been somebody else, not their best rider opening at 100. But yeah, I would say that's more the issue, not trying to follow Van der Poel when the race is going up the road.
Van der Poel, exactly, not Pogacar. I don't know why I said Pogacar twice there. He was not in the race.
Next year it'll be Pogacar, yeah.
Yeah, on paper, yes, that's for sure. And,
yeah, he said
and
he's doing it.
You pointed at Basque Country as well. That's also a major effect for the rest of the season. But Jorgensen then doing fantastic at Paris, where, like, when I saw the parcours before the season, I did believe Jorgensen could compete for a podium in that race. Against the likes of Remco, I expected him to lose the race, personally. But in my opinion, Remco also bottled a few things, or at least the team of Quickstep did in that race, certainly. But then also the Dauphiné was really another confirmation for Jorgensen in that. Do you feel like you, I don't know, towards the Tour de France then, Vingegaard steps up, he's back, well, in somewhat form, I would argue in pretty good form, based on what he showed there. But he gets second. I want to, before we go into like, is this a success or not this season, do you think we are judging Jonas Vingegaard based on the Tour de France 2024 too much towards 2025? Compared to what he might have gone to in terms of level if that crash did not happen?
You never know what definitely him and Poggy did, and Remco too, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, but definitely those three on Plateau de Bay, they did their best ever performance. But that doesn't mean it couldn't have been a better performance. And maybe without the crash, Vingegaard would have been even better in other stages. Maybe without COVID before the Tour de France, Poggy would have ridden away on the gravel stage. And that affected him in maybe on San Luca. So you just don't know how the preparation would have affected either of them. It's definitely not optimal. Like, Vingegaard did not have the optimal preparation. So, yeah, I would say it is possible that he could have been better.
I feel like when I look at Jonas Vingegaard this year and last year, obviously Pogacar got better overall and is the better climber in 2024. I think that's very fair to say. But I feel like the most notable difference in addition to that was the explosivity of Vingegaard to be able to respond to anything Pogacar did on a climb. Or is that in relation to the fact that he was already at his threshold and therefore could not put that acceleration while Pogacar can't?
Yeah, I think that's the case, like on Galibier, and you know, what was the gap on the top of Galibier? 6 seconds, 7 seconds.
Yes,
but then it becomes 35 because so that separation that Poggi was able to maintain. I think stage 11 is a big boost because if that hadn't happened, then you'd really be thinking, oh, how Poggi's complete. But the reality, like, Poggi was good and so dominant on a lot of stages, but the reality is, he, again, was fucked on another stage this year. And if that had been finishing on a climb, he would have got dropped. And so, and Vingegaard was able to beat him head to head. And so that's a big boost, I would say, that, I mean, he won a sprint. Congrats. That's not going to, Poggi beat him by 7 minutes or whatever, 6 minutes. But that's why it's like, it's not all doom and gloom. It's like, even with that preparation, he was still able to win a stage.
At the end of the day, Pogacar, if he has that bad day, if you take minutes on the other climbs, it doesn't matter. Eh? Like, so the real question will be, if Vingegaard has the ideal preparation in 2025, let's hope so, and Pogacar has the ideal preparation too, whether that can bring Vingegaard's level in terms of consistent level across the mountain stages closer to Pogacar, because that's when we have the battle. Because if it's not closer, then it doesn't matter if Pogacar has a bad day. Because the likelihood of him losing 5 minutes on a single climb, it's not super likely either.
No. Although it has happened before.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's, I would say the Tour de France, you say Jorgensen kind of saved the season. I'd say Vingegaard coming back from the Basque Country crash to come. I mean, most people were saying he won't even start, and then he comes second. That also, yeah, it's the biggest race in the world.
Yeah,
to do that was really, really crazy. But I think your question, Benji, was 2024 successful for Team Visma Lease bike? I mean, in comparison to their previous maybe the 21 to 22, 23, they didn't win the Tour in 21 either, but 21, 22, 23, their baseline, no, it wasn't a successful season. Was it a disaster? No. I also don't see it as like a disaster or a terrible season either. If you have the binary question, is it successful or not? You can't say yes, but to be honest, it's like it would be a much more concern if they won, say, another 10 World Tour races, but Vingegaard was like suddenly, at Almeida's level. Then that's actually a bigger cause for concern. No, but or Van Aert was
Portuguese
didn't
fans
have
in
the.
uproar.
No, I don't think
You're
the
not
Portuguese
beating the
fans
allegations
think,
that the anti-Almeida allegations. You're not beating them, my friend.
Yeah, well, if he attacks once this year, Paris there's a few uphill finishes. Let's see if he jumps.
Like
he won't.
I get your point when it comes to the it's not a disaster. I get what you're saying. I think Visma Lease is also a bit of a victim to their previous success in the year before, because we're not comparing to 2022. We're not comparing to 2021. At the end of the day, we're comparing to 2023 because that's the closest in our history. And to go from winning those 3 Grand Tours, because I'll be honest, was a shadow of what he was in 2023 and 2024. Now, there were some reasons, I don't know if it was COVID or illness that impacted him, but also his general level outside of that just wasn't there this season. I can't vividly remember a wonderful day of Kuss on the bike in 2024, which is a shame, because after winning the Vuelta, then you're hoping that, okay, is that going to lead to future success there, or will he stay in that super domestique role? Haven't been any closer to a consistent GC role after 2020, after seeing 2024, that's for sure. And I'm leaning to somewhere in between a small disaster and a bad season. But the reason that I'm looking at it from with a relatively positive angle is the fact that a lot of it was inflicted by crashes, was inflicted by illness, and we can't neglect that. If they arrive with the full team of Classics rider at the Classics, then we get more podiums for Wout van Aert and so forth, potentially a victory left and right again. So then you get more out of that in the Classics. If you get Vingegaard to show up at top level at the Tour de France, maybe he wins more stages. Maybe he goes to the Vuelta as well. I don't know. That's a potential follow-up. And competes there for GC. So there's so many impacts, so many factors that led to it being a bit of a disaster of a season, in my personal opinion. I would also say that Wout van Aert coming back and striking back in the Vuelta, getting those 3 stage wins, wearing the green jersey, looked great. But then he crashes out again, which is it weird, but that felt like it was the drop that overflew the bucket for a second there. I was like, come on, guys. Like, he's finally back. He's finally on his bike again. He's finally riding. He's finally winning again. He's looking good. He's giving me vibes of, it's not the same level, but it's giving me the vibes of the 2022 Tour de France Wout van Aert for a little bit in the Vuelta. So I'm like, okay, we've got something here. Then he crashed, and I'm like, okay, we're back at square one. And he can't even take the green jersey home. Maybe in our heart, but not in actuality, which that was an unfortunate moment. But hey, we've gone through the season. It's not a success. But the question is, are there arguments for change for the better in 2025? We went through that. I would argue when it comes to Vingegaard, I think there's hope. As in, I think you could argue that we haven't seen the best of Vingegaard in 2024 because the preparation was imperfect. And as a consequence, it would only be logical that with a perfect preparation, he can get to a closer level than Pogacar in 2025. Personally, I find it hard to think of Vingegaard straight up beating Pogacar next year based on what I've seen in 2024 though. Is that recency bias? Or is that because Pogacar just was that impressive this year?
Oh yeah, Pogacar had the best season ever, so of course it's hard to imagine beating him. But yeah, Vingegaard's, I think you can never say never, and he's done it twice before. And I think he can get better. And with we don't know because we don't know what his level could have been in the 2024 Tour de France, and so I think it is possible.
for me, it's partially that I think like that because in the past, when Vingegaard, when Visma hadn't won the Tour de France, he had it all the way back in 2020, 2021. Back then, we both had the opinion like, okay, these are areas where Pogacar still has weaknesses there, there. And then those weaknesses started playing out in the races that Vingegaard actually ended up winning. And when I look at 2024, I have a very hard time pointing at weaknesses.
He cracked again.
Yeah, he cracked, but it is perfectly possible that is a nutritional issue in that stage.
Well, same on Grenal, then.
Well, it's
same
possible, but that stage has no pattern for me with the cracking stage of the past. In terms of parkour, in terms of terrain, on paper, that is a stage where you'd expect Pogacar in previous years, except maybe 2023, to beat Vingegaard. Like in 2022, we would have said that's a Pogacar stage.
Yeah, definitely.
Even in 2023.
Probably in 23 as well, yeah. And actually, it was strange because actually the quote-unquote Pogacar stages like San Luca and stage 11, that was where Vingegaard was most comfortable, it seemed.
Yep.
And it was like the Plateau de Bay where Pogacar took the biggest, or Isola, he took the biggest time gap on the longer climbs. But yeah, it's, I mean, we don't know. We'll see. I don't think Vingegaard would do UAE tour. I'd be surprised to see him there. So I don't think we'll have an early test at the end of February. That would be funny if there was a TTT. Dude, maybe they should do it. Imagine Visma send Vingegaard, Van Aert, Affini, Campenaerts, Laporte, Jorgensen, like send Behrens, and they did the TTT, and then Vingegaard can somehow follow on her feet. That would be the funniest troll ever.
The fact that you put Behrens in that same list shows that you're quite bullish on that man, I reckon. But
well, I just basically picked anyone that's over 80 kilograms. I think it's going to be a flat TTT.
Talking about people above 80 kilograms, there's quite a few transfers coming in and transfers going out. And in terms of outgoing riders for this team, Visma Lease Bike 2025, we have Robert Geesink retiring. I'm pretty sure he's not above 80 kilos, though. Otherwise, well, now he's allowed to be.
I don't think you will be. You probably train more, dude.
Yeah.
You probably train more.
Robert Geesink seems like the kind of guy that will try to like stay as fit as possible. I don't know why. Anyway, either way, his choice, his life, not my problem. Jan Tratnik is also an outgoing transfer. He joined up with Primoz Roglic at Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, and it's actually 3 people leaving for that team from Visma Lease Bike, including Mick van Dijken and Tim van Dijken, the 2 boys that did relatively well at Paris-Roubaix, one of which got thrown out of the top 10 because he crossed the line left or right of the velodrome. Koen Bouwman is leaving to Jayco Lula, Milan Vader to Q36.5, Stonemiti to Decathlon, and Michel Hesman is the question mark right now in terms of destination. But I would expect that he's probably leaving based on the situation that he was in. But rider by rider, I go through this list. Tratnik was valuable for the team in terms of domestique level, but also in terms of the numerical strength in the classics, which then leads to winning Omloop at Nieuwsblad. Is the guy on cheap money? No. So that's also a factor we need to keep in mind. But outside of him on this list, I feel like everyone's relatively replaceable.
I mean, Stanemit was a much hyped prospect, Benji. He won the Baby Giro or Ronde Lizard in only 2023.
Buddy.
But yeah, he was. Yeah, I like Stanemit at Hagenez. But he's gone to Decathlon. I mean, his agent actually gave quite an open interview about the whole process. It was a buyout.
Really?
And a transfer, yeah. I can't remember where it was, but he gave quite a long interview, his agent. And he's just gone for more opportunities at Decathlon, which I can understand because he can go there. And Decathlon, they were like, you can lead our Giro team. Like, you will be the leader at the Giro. Yeah. And I can understand it's quite attractive. And you don't get those guarantees at Visma if you're not Vingegaard or Yates or Jorgensen. So even 1 week, so, you know, if he goes to Paris-Nice or Tirreno with Vingegaard or whoever, he's not going to get a chance to go for himself. So that's he made that decision, got to respect it, and I think, that was fine. Hessman obviously not extended. Varda, I think, he just can't perform in sort of the harder races. Bowman's another one. Yeah, he wants to be a stage hunter in Grand Tours. Can understand it. 1-2 Jura stages. Tratnik goes with Roglic, and it's a long-term deal. He's like 34. I do love Jan Tratnik, but like when you're putting a calendar together, these sort of riders are unbelievable. Like Tej Benoit, Kwiatkowski, Tratnik. You can put them in any race, and they are useful. It's unbelievable. But the Van Dijk's, Benji, 2 Dutch riders from the Devo team, 23. I would say they had a semi-breakout, not a full breakout, but I mean, they were following Van der Poel on Arenberg and Pedersen.
Yeah. I feel like when it comes to Mick and Tim van Dijk, we were like on the brink of, on the edge of a breakout. As in, I was maybe expecting that to come next season, and maybe that can still happen at Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. That's very much a possibility. I don't know how. Like, if I look at the team at Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, we went through it on the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe preview. I feel like there's other riders in the team that are more likely to win a classic than them at the moment, but they're still young riders, and that goes for a few riders in this list. Yes, Van Dijk is a young riders. Their potential is probably not reached yet. Their ceiling is yet in the future. Same kind of counts for Stonemitted, which is part of the reason that I am curious. I'm quite curious to see where that move to decathlon goes. But overall, I think this is a list of transfers where you can replace the riders that left the team. Even kind of Tratnik, even though he's very versatile across terrain, I'd argue he's replaceable in some fashion. We'll talk about the incoming transfers, one of which you indeed just mentioned, Victor Kampenaerts. I'm not sure I see Victor Kampenaerts as like a complete Jan Tratnik replacement, though. As in,
not exactly like for like, but sort of you can slot him in the same races.
We've seen Kampenaerts do well in the likes of Dwars door Vlaanderen. We've seen Kampenaerts do well he climbed very well in UAE Tour a couple of years ago. So on the day that he's ready for it, he can climb relatively well. In the Vuelta, we've seen him destroy breakaways by just pacing at the front. So very good roller type rider, especially because he got that time trial history as well. Focus on aero a lot, maybe in addition to the team in terms of mind in that sense as well. But overall, I think the most important factor Kampenaerts has is that exact factor you mentioned when it comes to Tratnik, is that not only physical versatility, but also that probably mental versatility that I don't think Victor Kampenaerts will be complaining about. Okay, Victor, we want you to go to this race as that role. We want you to go to this race as that role. He's probably just going to be happy to be there because it's probably going to be a relatively high-level race anyway.
Yeah, I think like he knows the deal. He wants to ride for a Van Aert or a Vingegaard at this point in his career. And I mean, the guy won a Tour de France stage not by luck.
Yeah,
he won a Tour de France stage from a 50-man fucking breakaway. It was the only like break stage for the rouleurs in the whole race, really. And he won it against Kwiatkowski and I can't remember, maybe Tergis or someone. Total Boy was in the break. Vercher. So that's a good trivia question. And he,
I think it's Vercher.
That's unbelievable. So yeah, that's a big signing because he can pull, he can do, like you said, very, very versatile. And like you said, if he goes to say Kerner, Brussels, Kerner, Benji, Jorgensen, and Van Aert, he's not saying on the team bus, well, how am I going to win the race today? What about me? And then that's not to say that if he does an individual time trial somewhere, he won't be able to go for it himself. That's not to say if he can go for it in a breakaway in other races, etc. But you're right. It's like with Van Hooijdonk. He was a little bit older and he was happy to ride for himself, even though he's good enough to probably win races himself. Kampenaerts certainly is good enough to win races. And that's, I would say, a theme, Benji. And it's, like UAE also don't hire domestiques that are neo-pros. And I think that's something to bear in mind. If someone's core function is to be a domestique, then it's difficult to sell that to a neo-pro. But yeah, I think the incoming list, and certainly by say the points metrics, it is stronger than the outgoing list. But before we get into that, a word on our show partner, Join Cycling. I've got a question for you, Benji. I've been training here. I'm doing heat training inadvertently. All these World Tour pros, they think, I discovered they all put on their little Instagram stories. Look at me. I'm in a hazmat suit in my bathroom. Try ride on the Gold Coast, 9 o'clock in the morning, buddy. Fucking 30 degrees, 25 wet bulb temperature. I'm saturated. What will I do on the corkscrew when we do the all-out test in January, Benji? I think it's
How
like
many minutes?
8 minutes. Yeah.
8 minutes? Ooh.
Nah,
the thing
less,
is also, I've got no like thing to compare to. I forgot what's were like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So I'm gonna guess
my best for the year is 320. My best 5 minutes is 320.
I would expect it to be above 300. I was probably gonna go for 320 for 8 minutes. So I'm actually gonna do that. I'm gonna set the challenge. I'm not even just gonna say 320. I'm gonna say 325.
I need to see my previous record on corkscrew. 325. It is steep in parts. You have to give me the lead up, Benji, as well, because it's like flatter at the start. If you don't mind, that would be quite helpful.
Like for me, it won't be 8 minutes, but how many minutes? Well, let's say for me, it's probably like 12, 13 minutes.
I'm bringing up corkscrew.
Many watts do you think it's going to be?
Okay, so my PR's a lot worse than I thought. So Jay Vine, course record 6:14. That was from the Tour Down Under when he went with Bilbao and Simon Felipe. Mine is 12:32. So doubled. I can't have been all out.
That's what you're hoping.
I think actually, yeah. I think I was pushing. So that was 4 watts per kilo. So that was 245 watts at 61 kilos, 12 minutes 30. Okay, I got to go under 11 minutes. I got to go under 11 minutes, Benji.
292 watts, I'm guessing, for your 11 minutes.
290?
That's probably a bit
probably spot on.
How long do you think it's going to take me?
Corkscrew?
I think like 22, 23 minutes.
Nah, 16, 17, because it's the first K is not so hard.
How many watts do you think I can do for 15 minutes?
290, 285.
I reckon it's going to be like 270-ish, 275-ish maybe.
It's easier to push watts down here. The power meters work differently on the southern hemisphere. Did you know that? Because of the magnets.
What is this nonsense? I'm not sure I want to hear this story.
Now you think it might be true. Anyway, I've been doing the FTP builder plan on Join Cycling. It's been working unbelievably well for me. Just doing about 8 to 10 hours a week and a bit of running as well. And I'm going really, really well. So I can't wait to do that. Let me know what you think we'll do on the Corkscrew Road. I can't wait to do it when we're in Adelaide. And go and check out Join Cycling yourself if you want to get fit over winter if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, or indeed if you're in Australia trying to crank out those Ks over summer. Okay, the incoming transfers, Benji. Some big ones and some young ones. I mean, this is a team doing a rebuild within, whilst they still have 2 of the top 6 riders. They still have one of the top 2 GC riders, and they're doing a rebuild at the same time, which is, I think, what teams don't do enough of. Mm-hmm. And when you look at other sports, like the Green Bay Packers, they have Brett Favre, quarterback, and then they draft Aaron Rodgers and then develop him so that he's ready when... Yeah, they bring in a Pablo Torres, Nordhagen prospect, and then they
animal with a long neck.
Draft.
Oh, draft. I thought you said giraffe.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers probably doesn't think giraffes are real. You want to basically build them up while you still have the top guy. It's too late if you then say, and it's what, top sports teams have to do to have continuity. And it's not like, oh, well, we got Jonas Vingegaard. We should just wait 5 years and then, no, you need to develop the young riders now. So actually,
I'd argue it's not just that, eh? Like on one end, yes, you want to giraffe a young rider in and kind of build him up while Vingegaard exists. But I think it's also, you want to make sure you have additional factors in addition to Vingegaard so that you're not just You're not just dependent on X amount of riders, but like, for example, with UAE Team Emirates, we speak a lot about the fact that rider 5 to 15 or 6 to 20 in that team is better than rider 6 to 20 at Visma Lease bike. And I think that's also one of the issues you would want to try and solve if you're Visma Lease bike at this point in the lifeline. Because on one end, yes, you want to make sure you've got the future hold, but also the likes of Simon Yates as one of the riders being added to the team. Yes, that is a rider that is a supportive rider in the mountains for Jonas Vingegaard, but also adds next to Jonas Vingegaard in potential one-week races. And that goes for the youngsters, I think, as well, the ones that are joining the team, in same fashion that Adel Toro might have joined UAE Team Emirates, a Jürgen Nordhagen might be joining Visma Lease bike, with also the desire to perform already next to just being that prospect. You know?
Exactly. You want to have more wins elsewhere, and that's Koi was a big winner who we didn't mention enough of probably at the start.
Yes.
Koi won, I think, 10 races or so, including 8 at World Tour levels. So that's nearly half of the World Tour wins came from Olav Koi. And I would say he had a breakout season this year. But yeah, you need to diversify those wins. And yeah, Simon Yates is that. Yes?
I actually think that Olav Koi, yes, he moved forward from 2023. But for me, this hasn't necessarily been that breakout season yet, because he was already he was already knocking on the door of the top sprinters. But for me, that door has not opened yet. He's not in that top 3. And for me, it's hard that it's a lot of pressure for Koi's next step to be a top sprinter with those other 3. But for me, that is the next step.
Yeah, but what more was he supposed to do?
In my personal opinion, to be on that same level as the top 3, you're more consistently beating them.
But he did.
And being if you see Merlier at the start and Olav Koi, the go-to reaction is Merlier's probably the favorite for the sprint. That has a reason.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. In UAE Tour, Merlier won 2, right? And then Koi won 1. But I'd say he's a little bit more versatile than Merlier, like in a Paris situation. Where that tricky finish, he was able to beat Pedersen when Pedersen was very strong. But I do think Koi is a top sprinter. I would say that there's not really a tier difference between, like, if you put them side by side in a drag race, Milan and Merlier will beat him over 200 meters. They just will. But actually, I think if you put Koi in that Alpecin train and replace Philipsen with him, I think you'd get exactly the same results in the Tour de France. Actually,
you are the sprinter you are in the context that you are, in my opinion. As in, we have to consider Olav Koi in the team that he is and with the lead out that he has, for the potential that he has at this team.
That's different. That's what your expectation is of his results, because he might not do the Tour de France next year, but who he actually is independent of the races he gets sent to.
I'm not saying the races. I'm saying also when he goes to a race with, he's never going to have the lead out that a Milan and so forth has a little track going to a race. Unless you send Wout van Aert as lead out and a full-on train in addition to that, which he won't consistently have.
And the Giro, you're supposed to have a Fini, Van Aert, and another big body.
Well, kind of didn't happen. So
yeah, but
question
that's
is
what
that
you're
happen
saying
in 2025?
But that's independent of who Olav Koi is.
But I judge a sprinter based on the context that he competes in, and I can't judge Olav Koi with an imaginary sprint train he hasn't had. You know?
Yeah. But if Pogacar lost the Tour de France on Intermarché because he did a bad flat time trial on a cube, would you say he's not?
Well, then I would not have the expectations on the next season in the next season with Intermarché, if he's still on Intermarché, that he would suddenly be beating Vingegaard and Visma Lease bike. You know, that's what I mean. It's within the context of the situation he's in. I agree that Olav Koi in a different team might be a different situation, but that's not what's happening.
No, it's not. And indeed, probably the fact that we didn't sort of speak about him at the same length as Vingegaard and Van Aert, it is an indication that he's not on sort of perceived as the same level more broadly as Milan, Merlier, and Philipsen. That's the reality, because if you're not winning Tour de France stages as a sprinter, it's hard to break through into the public consciousness. That's the reality. It's the big dance for the sprinters, even if you do pick up a lot of wins throughout the year. But yeah, Simon Yates. Pardon?
Go ahead, sorry.
He's Italian. He won the Ciclamino. He won 3 Giro stages.
Exactly.
He also really broke out. Like he went from 0 to he went from he won the Ciclamino on Bahrain.
He went from Ciclamino Bahrain plus leading out Rajovic. We need to always add that detail.
Who's on Nippo? Who's on the Tokyo Conti team, Pro Conti team. Simon Yates comes in. Sort of, they needed with Visma Lease lost Roglic, and they needed another sort of experienced GC rider. He also, I think, would be a pretty handy pairing alongside Vingegaard. Campenarts we discussed. McClay will be the lead out for Olav Koy. I think he will. Yeah, Koy needed a dedicated lead out, deserves a dedicated lead out, and an experienced one, and McClay will be that. So keen to see how they will go together. And then. Yes.
Question about McClay for you. Like, we've spoken about Daniel McClay a lot as in, that's like a rider that could potentially be like the next Danny Van Poppel in the way we saw Van Poppel a few years ago, as like the lead out that we might not have seen doing the lead outs at the forefront, but if he gets put in that role at a top sprinter, he might be able to perform in that sense. Why is that? Is that because he, as a sprinter, had those sprints where he wormed in between, or is that because of his work for Buhani back in the day?
I think, I remember that Saudi Tour lead us for Buhani. I don't know, it's tough to know what to expect because I was really impressed by what he did in the Tour de France for Demar, but it's maybe he's bringing Demar up too quickly and then Demar can't sprint. Yeah. Maybe Demar's slow and it wouldn't matter what lead out he gave him. I mean, I know where I sit on it, but I'm keen to see how he goes. Certainly, he's probably, he's not going to be in the Tour de France team, most likely. Yeah. But he can play a huge role also in those semi-classics. Like, he's been doing a lot of semi-classics his whole career. And so it's not just him, Benji. It's not just Koy. There's also Axel Zangler, Matthew Brennan, Wout van Aert. There's many sprinters, Christophe Laporte. They've gone from 2.5 sprinters to more riders that can sprint. Zangler comes in from Cofidis, not a pure sprinter, sort of a sprinty puncher. I would say don't really know what to expect, actually, in terms of rider he can become. But I think the key was, I mean, we spoke about the Van Dijks, Benji, and the reality is that, like you said, they sort of didn't break out because they didn't win, even on the minor calendar. And you have to just be winning more. Little Trek, they won a shitload on the minor calendar.
Yeah.
And now Zangler's not just going to be farming smaller races, of course, but my hot take is that if you can sprint, it's easier to win a race. And so, I know, incredible stuff. So I think that's why signing someone like Zangler, bringing up someone like Brennan, even Behrens can sprint. And then you have Koy, Van Aert, and Laporte. You have now 6 sprinting options, which is, you have to be able to sprint to win more races, because not everybody can win like Vingegaard.
Yep, that's for sure. And the thing with Axel Zangler is also, I just like the project that is Axel Zangler, as in we've had over the years the likes of riders from Cofidis, maybe Narkiel left or right. You've got a rider that is performing quite well in a team that, in all honesty, like Cofidis last year, wasn't doing very well across the board. Then you have to question, okay, is that team being impacted by the performance side? Does that mean that a specific rider is showing more talent by breaking through that barrier and still performing despite not having maybe the team performing around them? And we've also got the history of Laporte going to Visma Lease and then becoming a rider of top quality on the cobbles. But the big but is that when it comes to Laporte, we already saw him going over the Paterberg in the front riders at Cofidis, for example. So he
won that Paris-Nice final stage, like the hard one.
Yes. I completely forgot about that, actually.
Yeah.
You're right. So he certainly had shown those qualities. And when it comes to Zangler, the question is, can that effect be repeated? Is it possible for Axel Zangler to show up at Visma Lease bike and become a better rider because Visma Lease bike has more budget in terms of team setup and so forth, and maybe a different culture and so forth? That is the big question. And I do think that just overall, Zangler was already performing well at Cofidis. I'm expecting Axel Zangler to cause more wins to happen for this team, Visma Lease bike. And for me, the real factor is, can he compete for the likes of Amstel Gold Race or something? That's kind of the race where I'm like, that might be just above his ceiling or something. But that is the kind of race where I'm like, okay, I'd be intrigued to see Zangler compete there. But about these youngsters, Nordhagen, Tammengeraat, Brennan, Menno Huizing, we know Brennan as, for me, that's kind of a versatile sprinter. Is that a good classification?
That's correct. Yeah.
How he's versatile? Like as in, like Bling?
He's like Michael Matthews type rider. Maybe it's a bit smaller.
For some reason, I thought he was like more pure sprinter than that, but it's like proper versatile sprinter.
But Bling, but if you look at Brennan's pure sprint results in Olympia's Tour and those races, it's not that good.
Okay.
It's in the harder hilly. He won the Giro stage in the harder hills from the breakaway, and then in
Giro
the
Giro Children Giro. What's it called? Giro U23.
Infant Giro, yes.
Yes.
He won the bunch sprints on the behind in the first two Lavernier stages when they were like quite hilly or like quite attritional finals. So he's someone who just will be really, really difficult to drop and is fucking fast. Whether he develops into, because you got to remember, Bling also, you say that, Benji, Bling was consistent in bunch sprints in the Tour in like the 15, 16s. Didn't win much in them, but he was always there, and that's how he won the green jersey, because he was there, and Sagan got disqualified, but he was second. So, but he's not a bad bunch sprinter at all. So we'll see if Brennan can develop that. But yeah, he's not Panakoken.
We're not doing this again.
Yeah, like he can climb, and I'd be interested to see, because I think he was junior world record holder in the individual pursuit. Yeah. So I'll be keen to see what his prologue looks like. Luke would say Michael Zylard's better, but we'll see. Zylard did win a prologue world tour race this year, so it's kind of right. But yeah, he's a big prospect. Merijn Zeeman is a sort of all-round rider. He can do cobble races, I think top 15 in Roubaix under 23s, do hilly races. Then he can climb pretty well, so it'll be interesting to see how he develops. Tammengeraat is a pure climber. He was third in Lavernier, and he's quite small, so he's not going to be a big powerhouse. But actually, I think I like the small riders from flat countries.
From what countries?
Small riders from flat countries.
Okay.
Because Tammengeraat has to have learned how to be efficient in the bunch. Otherwise, he never would have made it through the junior categories and the cadets in the Netherlands. So he must be efficient, like Vingegaard in Denmark. I'm not saying he's going to be like Vingegaard, don't get me wrong. I'm just more saying like
we've heard this before with Tollett, right?
Whereas an Italian rider who's like a pure climber, it's not the same. And then Nordhagen is a big prospect, GC prospect from Norway. He was a very top-level cross-country skier, I think, where he's like small for that sport, and they're supposed to be like, it's better to be bigger, and he was still able to be competitive. I don't really know, Luke will correct me. I think like it's better to be like 70, 75 kgs. And but he was still competitive, so we'll see how he goes. But yeah, they have 11 riders, Benji, under the age of 24. So that's a lot of young riders under the age of 24. One of them's Coy, who sort of doesn't count, I would say. And then you replace him with Zangler, who's actually 26, but is still developing, let's say. But yeah, there's a lot of unknowns, but also a lot of, we didn't mention Behrens either, a lot of exciting young guys coming in. I think it's a big change from their signings of previous years.
I think so as well, but I think it's also a necessity, as in, At a certain point, you need this like resurgence in terms of lowering the age of the team overall, because that also means you're trying to focus on maybe rejuvenating certain areas of the team. And I think the riders it's not like they signed young riders just to sign young riders.
No.
And you looked at the list where all these riders, like Brennan, I'd argue, good argument to go to World Tour. Behrens as well, Nordhagen, Graat as well. Huizing was the only one the first time around where I was like, are we sure? But I'd argue he's probably like on the above end of the are we sure, and therefore deserving to be in a World Tour team, especially when you see the average World Tour rider in across the board. So I think looking at the incoming transfers compared to the outgoing transfers, I'd argue this is in two ways. I think this is a positive in terms of, I think the riders that are outgoing are kind of replaced by the list that comes in already. But there's a significantly higher ceiling with the youngsters that have come in to what they could potentially reach in the coming years. Because I think Behrens is already a solid rider. But I think he can still grow to the point that I'm very curious where that will reach in the future. And I'd argue that the ceiling of the likes of Behrens is, in my opinion, higher than the ceiling of both Van Dijk's combined.
Yeah, I mean, that's because you say, oh, well, they're better now. They were, top 10 in Roubaix. It's like, well, okay, but they've had multiple years in World Tour and then they haven't exploded, and Behrens might. And also, worst case, like Behrens is huge. Worst case, Behrens can already pull at 400 watts on the front for infinite period of time. Not that that's his role or his job, but it's also with the big riders, there's also like the floor is a lot higher on the bigger riders to be a useful rider in the team. Yeah. Whereas a pure climber, they got to climb pretty good to be useful need to be useful in other ways. But yeah, Behrens won U23 World Championships. It's a big coup for Visma Lease Bike to take him from the Little Trek development team. We'll see how he develops. But I'd say, Benji, at least two of these riders from Zangler, Behrens, Nordhagen, Kraft, Brennan, Huizing, at least two of them has to explode in the next 2 years or 3 years. Simon Yates is going to be who Simon Yates is. Camanas is who he is. McClay is who he is. But of the other guys, for this to be a successful window, two of these guys have to develop into like top level status.
Does it even have to be two? It depends on how successful one of them becomes. Like, if Behrens turns out to be a rider that wins classics races left and right, like, I'm sorry, but I'd already be like, okay, that success is already worth this transfer period. If Brennan becomes a more versatile version of Olaf Koy, maybe not with the top speed, and does become a Matthews type who can win
but wins 10 Quebec, races here and there.
Yeah, then it's already a very valuable transfer season, because like with Zangler, I'm not sure about exploding. Like, I don't know how far the ceiling is of Zangler, so I'm more looking at the actual youngsters, Behrens, Nordhagen, and so forth. Like with Nordhagen, we have expectations. Nordhagen, I won't say he's the second coming of Jesus Christ according to Norwegians.
But there's like the Pelazzari, Torres, Nordhagen.
When doing a Pro Cycling Manager career mode, he's one of the 3 riders that people in the comment section are like, sign this Jürgen Nordhagen guy, he becomes like 85 mountain in a few years. 85 is the maximum, to be clear.
Exactly. So you're right, Benji. You are right. Is that if you bring out one Van Aert or one Vingegaard or whatever out of this group, it doesn't really matter what happens with the rest. So, but yeah, that's the key. Is that the winds are flowing.
To be clear, for context, your entire curtain just disappeared.
Yeah. I'm having coffee delivery from my sister-in-law. She's very kind. Yeah.
What coffee is your go-to? Like cappuccino, latte, whatever?
A flat white.
Okay. I don't know anything about coffee, so I'm just filling up the gap while you figure out who can fix the curtain for you.
Which one of these riders do you expect to be the like the Jorgensen maybe, or the like really.
I'm in the Behrens camp. I have to be, genuinely. Like, we've spoken about him a few times already. He won that U23 World Championships, but I just find him a very captivating type of rider where, yeah, we don't know what he will perfectly become, but the strength he's already shown, and the fact that he can climb like that when he looks like an absolute tank, sorry, but that matters. That shows that he's got watts. And I just find that an intriguing rider type, and I want to see what that brings in the future. But overall, very positive feelings about this transfer window, I would say. Will it help them beat Pogacar next season? I don't think this transfer season is the real. This transfer season, to me, isn't the factor that will lead to that. It's whether Vingegaard can become better than in 2024.
Yeah, Simon Yates is like another. I think it does make a bit of a difference, but yeah, we'll see. Is Simon Yates himself going to beat Pogacar? Probably not. And in the end, Vingegaard has to be stronger. In the classics, also maybe Behrens is in there, maybe Zangler, but I think actually this team needs a lot more on the outside of those races from someone like Zangler and Brennan. They need someone who can win at País Vasco, win at Romandie, win at Catalunya, all these races, and also in the lighter Ardennes races.
So they need Pogacar, in other words.
No, I mean in like the sprints.
Okay.
And not the GC. If Zangler wins GC at País Vasco, I'll be surprised. It'd be impressive.
Mate, you'd be looking up the list of confidence riders and be like, oh my god, who's the next Axel Zangler?
Dude, I'd be like, I told you he was talented. Didn't think he was this talented, but he was talented.
You'd be like, I told you he was the new Vingegaard in the preview.
Yeah, I told you Axel Zangler was a GC rider. I said the whole time. I never said he was a French puncher who could maybe win more races on a different setup.
You said more races. You didn't say it wasn't the Tour de France.
Maybe he performed better outside France. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, also they signed Ashton Barry. That's not on this list, but Ashton Barry was announced last week that he would join the whole Visma structure, starting with the younger renners in the as a second-year junior, and he will become then going to the Devo team, and yeah, with a long-term deal with the team. Probably the biggest prospect in the juniors going into 2025. American/Canadian rider.
Wait, is this a Justin Bieber type of vibe where the countries are fighting over who deserves to have Ashton Barry, or?
I think he was Canadian, or his father's Canadian, and then he was sort of born in Canada and then changed the nationality to American a few years ago.
Okay.
Is his mum American?
I don't know.
Check. He's from Michael Barrios, his father, who obviously rode for Team Sky, and yeah, his mum Didi Demet Barry's American, and she was
Patrick, tapping into that 23andMe database of Ashton Barry, to try and figure out if he has ancestral diseases in the meanwhile.
she was second in the Olympic Games individual time trial.
Really?
So like, yeah, he's got the genes. Yeah. Okay. So that's the transfer window. Okay, going into what should Wout van Aert's season look like, Benji? I mean, pretty easy. You're gonna do the classics, and with the big focus on Flanders and Roubaix. So I think more what would you like his Grand Tour season to look like?
I have been violently attacked after one of the last podcasts where I declared my inactivity in the cyclocross community, and
really,
I will hereby
do people go at you?
Oh, I've lost my passport according to the entirety of Belgium. I'm not sure I'm welcome anymore at my family's house, to the point that, in my personal opinion, I think Wout van Aert should just scrap his entire road season and prepare for the CX season completely for next season. And that's the way it has to be.
Just do Thibaut Nice calendar.
Fairly. Anyway, on a serious note, Wout van Aert's like classics, like you said, is the obvious one. But then you look at the Grand Tours and you're like, okay, Jonas Vingegaard is going to do the Tour de France. in my personal opinion, he's probably going to do the Vuelta. There were some rumors online about Vingegaard to Giro and so forth, and maybe there were some thoughts internally about that fact when it started becoming unlikely that a Remco or a Pogacar would show up in that race. But I've never really believed in the Giro rumors of Vingegaard, and that brings me to the point that if Vingegaard goes to the Tour de France, and last season Wout van Aert was supposed to go to the Giro and didn't necessarily go to the Tour de France initially planned, at least, then maybe that is the thing they're actually going to go for in 2025, where they would combine the cobbles with the Giro and not do the Tour de France. Because if you then look at Simon Yates coming in the team on top of Jorgensen, which Jorgensen, in my personal opinion,
he's the trickier one to me.
Is he? For me, it's Tour de France.
Yeah. But then with Jorgensen, it's like, could he not podium the Giro? If you send Yates and Jorgensen to the Giro, it's pretty good.
I believe if you want to win the Tour de France, you got to put your best riders the riders that could make Jonas Vingegaard the best possible GC rider at the Tour de France around him at the Tour de France. And I feel like Jorgensen has filled that role that Wout van Aert had in the past perfectly in 2024. And I'd argue that Jorgensen 2024 the Tour was better than Wout van Aert 2023. 2022 Tour de France Wout van Aert, I'm not so sure about that one, because that's hard to replace. But we haven't seen that Wout van Aert at the Tour de France since then either. And in the Vuelta, I said, yeah, there were moments where I saw that spark, but it's very different than the role he had in the 2022 Tour de France for Vingegaard either. So for me, it's Jorgensen Tour de France compared to a combination of cobbles and hill classics. I would argue that I'm leaning mostly to the cobble classics once again, and lightly to the hill classics in that sense. And Wout van Aert for me is cobbles combined with the Giro, even though that's historically seen as not the easily combinable scenario. The fact that they were going for it last year means it's possible in my head.
And also, like, it's not like a GC rider, right? Where a GC rider, they can't have one bad day, then you're gone in a Grand Tour from the bad preparation. If Van Aert has one bad day because he needs to recover or he just needs to take some days off, it doesn't matter in the Giro. He's a stage hunter. So yeah, that was the plan in 2024. But then the Tour de France, Benji, week one really suits Van Aert. It's like they do the Calais stage he won about 7 times in this start of the Tour de France. And the Vuelta, I don't think there's a better race for him than the Vuelta.
That is true. Yeah, like Cobble, Giro, Vuelta you can combine, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think everybody can agree with that. When it comes to the Tour de France, if you add Wout van Aert to the addition of the Tour de France, then it also becomes a story of, well, Sports is going to be writing a lot about you, because Wout van Aert is going to be in a team with... What do you mean? As in...
Is Sports are really into big 2025 going to be like...
Yes.
Poor Wout van Aert, he has to ride the... Really?
Yes. Mate, have you been to Belgium recently? Yes. So,
okay.
Internally, that's also a factor. Yeah,
he got to go for every stage he wanted to in 24.
Yeah, but it also adds an extra dimension to the race for Visma Lease bike, where if you... It's a story of 2 parts. It's a sword that cuts both ways. Ooh, smart expression. The one side of the sword is you have to focus on trying to win a stage with Wout van Aert while trying to get close with Vingegaard on a parcours, maybe on one of those stages where Pogacar would also compete for the stage for bonus seconds. So suddenly you might be sprinting with Wout van Aert and Vingegaard because you're trying to win the stage and the bonus seconds. So there's less clear objective in that sense. But on the other side of the sword, if Vingegaard crashes, you've got a backup in Wout van Aert to still get results throughout the Grand Tour. But you also have that backup by sending him to the Giro and the Vuelta.
Yeah, but the Vuelta, it's a nice race, but it's not the Tour. And that's an important consideration, Benji. It's like, well, if you're not the favorite for GC and you won one stage in 23, but you won GC, so it was okay in the end. And then in 24, you won one stage, but you didn't win GC.
Yeah.
It's better if you're not the favorite, that you're going to win more stages or be in the mix every day. And Van Aert's a big draw. I think you said he's pretty big in Belgium.
But But where does Koi come in?
Exactly, that's the tricky one as well. Because Koi, like you said, like I was arguing, I'm the one arguing that Koi is a top sprinter. I really firmly believe that.
Yeah.
But I'm the one that's been arguing it, or with you. So that, yeah, where does he fit in? And it's like, well, yeah, it's tricky across those races.
Especially because the Giro parkour is still unknown.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we know the start. The start's not so good for him.
Yeah, that's actually true.
But there's more stages, obviously. So yeah, it's we don't even know. We know the Vuelta route now. The Vuelta route definitely not good for him. I think there was like 2 sprints. The first sprint came in like week 3 or something.
How many are there at the Tour again? Sprint stages?
There was a shitload of. Well, it depends how you categorize a sprint.
An Olaf Kooi possible sprint. Quite a few, no?
Quite a few, but not as many as was rumored. It was not as many as this year.
Yeah.
Like week 1, there's a lot where, like, actually, if Pogacar goes, it's not going to be a sprint anymore.
My only issue with Olaf Kooi potentially going to a Tour de France is that with a rider like Remco, who on paper the realistic ending is a podium position, then you're like, okay, I don't think adding Merlier and Van Lerbergen to that team will change the possibilities of potentially winning this race for Remco Evenepoel. I think if you take 2 positions out of the Visma Lease bike squad and you put in Olaf Kooi and maybe a lead out in Daniel McLay, which I'd find surprising at the Tour de France.
No.
So
because the door can do a lead out.
That's fair. So if Laporte then goes and you replace one person with Kooi, then you are reducing one rider. Then again, Koi's not a Panacook either, eh?
Yeah, but he's not Van Aert.
Yeah, for sure not. He's not Van Aert, but like
now you're about to overrate him, Benji. Kooi can't jump. Kooi can't jump in break formation and like in a hill stage and get in the break.
That is correct.
He's
and especially
a sprinter.
I thought he was gonna pace the final climb.
Dude, you get to Madeleine and he'll just start going at 7 watts per kilo.
I'm sorry, but at the start of this podcast, you said you were the head of strategy at Visma Lease bike, and I know for a fact that you can do 1500 watts for 50 seconds. Why could Olaf Kooi not do it on the final climb?
Well, exactly. That's why I keep telling. I say, like, look at these guys.
Like,
they can't even do 1500 for 50.
If you can do 1500 watts for 15 seconds, then I'm sorry, but if you just stretch that out a little. Okay, on a serious note.
Yeah. No, it's tough. It's tough because, well, yeah, it's like a pure sprinter is a lot different to even a Zangler. Like a Zangler can also give a bike to Vingegaard. They're the same size.
Yeah, true.
So, and then Zangler, you're not going to worry about missing the time cut. They don't really, they just go for it on the punchy stages or Van Aert. So it's tricky to combine.
Especially when you look at the Tour de France and you're like, okay, UAE Team Emirates, super team, Visma Lease bike would want a super team there to put pressure on the super team of UAE Team Emirates in the hopes that they can find cracks in that team around Pogacar to maybe find a way to beat him that way. That's another factor. Then in my opinion, it's hard to afford giving a spot to Kooi as well. But if you're Olaf Kooi, at some point you're going to want that Tour de France spot because at some point you're going to deserve it.
Yeah. And, I mean, maybe you never know. Again, this is December. I remember Visma Benji would always announce their Tour de France team in like October 5th for the next year. And we'd be like, this is a little bit early to be announcing this. So a lot of things, that would happen every year. And then the team would look completely different. So a lot of things can change between now and July, obviously. What would you like to see from Vingegaard next year? What schedule?
What I would like to see from Vingegaard outside of the schedule is a competitiveness against Pogacar. And the only main throne that you need to do that on. Well, obviously the Tour de France is the big one, but that's not a 1 week, that's a 3 week. I would like to see Tour de France Vuelta double, to be clear. Not just the Tour de France. I want to see both in the same season. I don't care what he thinks. Vingegaard has to do it. I don't care if he wants to go to Rwanda for a World Championships. Got to do both, my friend. And on top of that, just as many 1 weeks as possible. It's going to be Tirreno, I think, because the Paris-Nice parkour... No, Tirreno parkour was relatively light, so it's probably going to be Paris-Nice in my head. Just go to UAE Tour just to troll UAE.
Yeah, I already outlined the UAE Tour team. Tony Martin, 10-day contract.
No, on a serious note, I think Tirreno was a light parkour, so I'm guessing Paris-Nice. Then I prefer Dauphiné over to the Swiss, personally. Has to be something Pays Vasco, something Catalunya, probably Pays Vasco, because I prefer that race. This is pure personal preference at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who's doing Pays Vasco. Is Boggy doing it?
I am.
Schedule. Nah, he's doing like he's doing like UAE Tour, then 1 days, then Dauphiné.
Yeah.
Then Tour Vuelta.
So Vingegaard has to show up at the Dauphiné, or everyone in this comment section must shout, he's ducking him.
Yeah. Dauphiné, I mean, Swiss, the main guys just don't do Swiss anymore, so that wouldn't make sense. What do you want to see, just like more, what does this team need to do, Benji? What do you need to see in 2025?
Competitiveness against Pogacar is the number one requirement.
Yep, number one.
Because from 2023, you are looking at a team that won 3 Grand Tours in a season, going to a team that was not competitive for the victory in a Grand Tour because, well, Vingegaard was focusing on the Tour de France and he crashed at Basque Country, but Pogacar was also just better.
There's also the Giro and the Vuelta, and they weren't competitive there either.
Yes. Second line, I would say win more across the board. I want to see more victories than 32 for a team like Visma Lease Bike. So that's number 2 for me. Part of that comes at Wout van Aert being healthy for more than just 3 months in the season. That might help. That comes from riders across the board winning the team winning. Maybe Persson Hagen is moving up a little bit. Maybe one of the youngsters like Behrens winning something. Maybe Zangler coming in, winning a few 1.1 races in France. I don't care. Just winning across the board more. Bit of stat padding left and right included in that. I would like more competitiveness in the classic season, which comes from staying healthy towards that classic season. That is definitely one as well, which that goes hand in hand with the win more and be more competitive across the season, just in general. And yes, that's partially because UAE is more broad in terms of riders 6 to 20, but also because of the injuries that VLab had in 2024. I would say, do I have a number 3? Do I have a third one I want to see? Sepka's resurrected. I want to see him do something in 2025. That's my third point. Just Sepka's. Because the fact that we're not even speaking about him going to a Grand Tour means a lot.
Yeah, he won Burgos, but otherwise in 24, it wasn't the same as in 2023, where he did all 3. It was part of all 3 successful Grand Tour victories. So it definitely wasn't as good a season for him. What I would like to see is really what you pinpointed, Benji, on winning more. That you cannot just be, okay, you can say, oh, Van Aert went down, Vingegaard went down, but it's a team of 29 riders.
Yeah.
And it's a big calendar. And I know the Tour de France is the biggest race. I know the Flanders-Roubaix are the biggest monuments, but it's a big calendar, and the team has to win more across the calendar. And that's what UAE did this year. UAE won a shitload of races outside of Poggi. They were winning every week. And Visma has to be winning constantly as well, even if it's not at World Tour level, because if Nordhagen or Brennan rattle off some victories on the minor calendar, that's also a big boost.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not that exciting if Van Aert wins a .1 race, but when a youngster starts to win, it's exciting, and that's what UAE did well. So Visma, and I think that's part of then this year. There was UAE in a tier of their own.
Yeah.
And then Visma were actually, by UCI points, only sort of in the tier of Trek at Red Bull and Quickstep. They need to be in the tier above.
Yeah.
You have to be way above those other teams. Now, whether you're not going to overtake UAE's UCI points, impossible.
No.
Impossible. But you may not overtake their World Tour number of victories either. But you have to be in the tier with them, because in 2023, UAE were kind of in the same tier as Visma still.
Yeah.
Nah, maybe not. Maybe not, but you know what I mean?
Half.
They were on a tier of their own, second. And I think that's what, at a minimum, the team has to do in 2025. And then really looking to see if one of the youngsters, explode. That'll be, because that's always exciting.
Before we get to the how many World Tour victories, you've spoken about the youngsters exploding quite a bit. You have a hot take for them? You have a hot take of like,
oh no, because that's what
I'll do.
I can be like, this rider, this guy, he's going to be the next Cancellara, and then he like won't be good. So
then I'll be like, hey, remember when you said this guy was
then
Cancellara?
we'll do a year from now, and you're like, you're an idiot. So, yeah, Behrens is really good, isn't he? So we'll see how he goes. But could Behrens? Should I do a hot take? Behrens podium Roubaix. That's pretty hot, or is that not hot enough?
That's also the one I was leaning towards, to be honest. So I think that's a hot take.
No, it's a hot take. He's a fucking neo pro. You've been riding.
I would say that's a hot take, but it's one that I also see as like a maybe possible.
It's an informed hot take.
Yeah, I'd say it's a hot take.
yeah, but it's like you can be like, oh, Nordhagen will like podium the Vuelta. Like it's just, it's probably not going to happen, is it? So that was. Oh, what else? I'll do a different one, maybe.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say. No, that was my hot take. Behrens Roubaix. And my other one is that I think the TT is going to come back. I think they're going to actually become a more back to their dominant ways in the team time trial. Okay. Mainly because they have bigger riders that won't be injured.
Kian Uiterbrooks will podium at time trial in 2025. That's hot take.
Yeah, it's Tour de Suisse. Maybe you got like a Romney's got an uphill TT. Maybe.
Why did we not talk about him? He was in competition to top 5 the Giro before he fell out of the race, basically. Not fell, but got ill out of the race.
Got ill, yeah.
He can top 5 the Giro next season. Well, who knows? The parcours unknown.
Yeah, the parcours unknown. I mean, yeah, I would say he can top 5 the Giro. Yeah, he came 8th in a staggered Vuelta already. He was already in P5 in the Giro this year. Then he got 6th. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but definitely not a good season. Not the season he or the team would have hoped for. But sure. No, I still think he's capable of doing that, and he's still at like 21, 22 years old. But yeah, the time trial certainly needs to improve, particularly if there's a Grand Tour with extensive time trial kilometers. But yeah, I think the team will. I think it will win 4 World Tour time trials.
Ooh. The reason I'm not necessarily as believing in that is because I believe that Ineos will start sending Tarling to more of them.
And Ghana, yeah.
So that's the reason I'm not really feeling that. But hey, you said it.
True. I hit 4 World Tour time trials minimum.
Okay.
How many World Tour victories?
We had 18 World Tour victories in 2024, 38 in 2023. I think it's gonna go up, to be honest, just by the fact that it would have to be 2025 would have to be such a bad season for Visma Lease, Mike, that all of these riders that were injured are injured again, to the point that it limits them again in the amount of victories that they can have throughout the season. I am going to go for 28 World Tour victories. I expect 10 more.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 25 World Tour victories.
Okay. I'm more bullish than you.
Yeah, but the 2022 season, there was 24 World Tour victories, and that was with Van Aert stomping, with Roglic winning everything, and Vingegaard. So, like, 25 World Tour wins is actually a shitload of World Tour wins.
Wait, how many did UAE have again?
Oh, a lot.
I'm checking. Give me 1 second. UAE
40.
Team Emirates. 41 World Tour victories.
Yeah.
Ooh, 28 is a lot.
And then in 23, UAE had 28.
I'm going to go 28.
So, like,
fuck it.
28. So you're saying like 28 is like that's mega bullish. That's like you're having a...
I'm not sure I believe in it, actually. I think it's too bullish.
You say, oh, of course, a climber that can't sprint. So, I mean, I don't know where you think these World Tour wins are going to come from.
Mate, Bologna mountain stages, my friend.
Exactly. I have to look. Okay, so we're going to go Bologna with Bologna with Van Aert, and we're going to really actually, no, I got to pump these numbers down because your number's bigger than mine. Any hot takes you got?
I gotta ask. Please send Olaf Koy to the Sand Student Under just for the sakes of my World Tour victories, because otherwise I'm doomed. But I also just think like through Down Under, I expect Visma Lease Bike to arrive with a better team than last year there for maybe a Wollongong Hill. I don't know. That's the vibe I have going into the next season. If they want to win more, that's kind of part of that process. And also, they've got an Australian person in the management now, so they have no choice but to send better riders to Australia.
And you got to send a sprinter. You have to send a sprinter to it's a World Tour race. You have to send a sprinter. Because there's some harder sprint stages there. It's not going to be so easy for Welsford to win 3 stages this year.
Yep.
So,
Zangler could win Cadel Evans, just saying.
I think the team never does Cadel Evans.
Oh, okay. That's rude.
Yeah, just not in a good spot on the calendar. It should be before the Tour Down Under. I would say the week before. That was our Team Visma Lease Bike preview. We did the hot takes. I think, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting season for 2025. The 2 big questions. How will this young talent develop? How will Vingegaard and the team come back to see if they can really compete against Pogačar with an ideal preparation? Yep. I think everyone's really poised and interested to see how that goes. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to see the season of the team because, well, yeah, it's not just UAE, Benji. There's others. Yep. It's a competitive landscape out there with Red Bull, with Lidl, with Ineos, Decathlon even. I was interviewed with Oliver Naesen about how they're improving in the classics. So it's hard to stay on top, and I'm keen to see how the team does. But yeah, anything else you'd like to say? Oh, I got one more hot
particularly. Take. Oh, you've got one more hot take. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's coming.
I think Jorgensen steps up into like the big 6 sphere.
Okay.
He becomes a big 7.
Oh, okay. So are you telling me he becomes like Pidcock, like the add-on to the big 6? Or he actually becomes like...
No. He actually...
So he's replacing Wout van Aert is what you're saying?
No, it's a big 7 now.
That's not how it works.
I think he goes into that tier. I think that's what happens.
Really? Ooh. It's a hot take. Hey, that's why it's called hot.
Exactly.
I'll allow it.
You'll allow it? Okay. That was our Team Visma Lease Bike preview. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you with, I think, SD Works next. Until then, ciao.